Hey there. Just letting everybody know that the contents of this week's podcast, Reimagining the Magic, contains subject matter and conversations, including language used that are pretty adult in nature, so viewer and listener discretion is advised. Anyone under the age of, high school, don't listen unless your parent or guardian says it's okay. Other than that, this one's a bit more adult and blue than others, so giving you a warning. Anyway, hope you enjoy this week's podcast of Reimagining the Magic. Welcome everyone this week to Reimagining the Magic. I'm Katie, and once again, I have our guest.
Yay, this is Gabriel Ricard, columnist at Drunk Monkeys and Cultured Vultures, author, got a new book coming out pretty soon, and just a guy who watches way too many movies, including a lot of Disney, so what the hell, let's do it.
Yeah, he's kind of gone from guest to go to Julie is too busy or doing something, or I'm too busy doing something, and our schedules aren't lining up correctly, and it's like, oh shit, we need something for this week.
Well, I mean, this happened to be a fortuitous Thursday. I'm usually still working at this point, but I managed to finish work before 11 p.m. today, so here I am.
I usually upload on Mondays or Tuesdays, but yeah, we'll record them on a Thursday, a Friday, or a Saturday or Sunday. So the funniest thing is when we record late in the week, but then I upload beginning of the next week, so much news can happen in between, and people will tweet why didn't you cover this? And it's because we recorded pretty much right after the last one went live.
Y'all send us some money, we'll record every goddamn day.
Exactly. Yo, give us more than $20 a month, yo.
Indeed.
So, you have some news about people with Black Panther.
Yeah, so I haven't looked into this too closely, but there seems to be a grassroots campaign going on right now from a bunch of DC Comics movie fans, the DC DC Cinematic Universe or whatever they're calling it, and it seems to be a group of fans for that, and their whole thing is to try and downvote a bunch of Disney and Marvel movies, starting with Black Panther, so that they get low scores on Rotten Tomatoes.
The funny thing is it looks like whatever Disney is churning out this year might not be that good, except for the Marvel movies.
Pretty much.
I have hope for Incredibles 2. I want to have hope, but that teaser trailer gave me no hope.
Well, the teaser trailers are never very spectacular. The movies themselves usually, let's be honest. Most of the teaser trailers are, they're definitely teasers in the purest sense of the word. And I usually wait when it comes to Pixar movies. I usually wait for a full trailer before I pass judgment, unless it's a Cars movie, in which case I just assume it sucks.
The teaser, the very first teaser, I remember people freaking out about it because it came out I think 6-7 months before the movie did, and it was just showing Lightning McQueen crashing, and people were
"Yep,
R.I.P. Lightning McQueen," and people were hoping I hope that's the whole movie.
I still haven't seen it. I still haven't seen the third Cars. I was just so pissed off after the second one that I just said never again. Nice try, Pixar.
The upside to the third movie is it pretends that the second movie didn't happen.
Well, that's a good start.
It's just that second movie. Nope. They just moved it to the trash bin on the computer, just deleted, and it's gone.
Which was too bad, because the one shining light in that movie in the second one was probably Michael Caine, just being Michael Caine as a car, but that was still far and away the most entertaining thing in that movie.
I wish is this legal? Because I kind of want to take that movie and just edit all the bits of Michael Caine as a car and just be like Cars 2, Michael Caine as a car.
if we do that, I want to go way back and do that for the third Austin Powers movie too.
Be like Cars 4, Michael Caine is a car. Screw Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah, I gave him a pat. I hate his comedy. I don't care for the guy personally. But I had to give him a pass on the first one because my girlfriend at the time and I saw it, and we got out of the theater, and I was like, I hate to say it, but Larry the Cable Guy did a really good job.
He has like a shtick, and as long as he sticks to that shtick, he's tolerable. But he actually just has one joke.
Yeah. Um, and he only said, if I recall correctly, he only said "get her done" once in the whole span of Cars, the first one. So that was the other reason why I gave him a pass. I was like, all right, fine. And
I
it
We're both comedians, so like I know I'm not a fan of like one joke, one note comics, but they seem to be the most
no.
popular, and it's so frustrating.
Well, especially him. I don't think he might just be the most successful one note comedian in a long time. The only guy I can think of that was like him, that's kind of in that same vein, who was successful for at least a minute, was what is that asshole's name? Jeff Dunham.
Jeff Dunham, definitely. I'm gonna say, oh man, his name escapes me. The guy, Mencia, that guy.
Oh yeah, he sucks.
I don't even.
Um,
That's not even his real name. I remember hearing
no.
like that. That was just like a stage name he adopted to put on this act, and I'm like, and I'd have to say Dane Cook also is kind of a one note, one joke. It wasn't.
Oh, Dane Cook is terrible.
It wasn't in that realm of just pure vile. And I hate to say it, toxic masculinity, just super
Yep.
offensive masculinity, sexist, racist. If it wasn't in that vein, and not even in like a clever way, like some of the, I'd call them, right wing comedians, is a nice way to put it. At least some
Yeah.
of them are clever, especially the old school guys.
Oh yeah.
But no, it's just, you can hear the viciousness in his jokes.
Yeah, like Norm Macdonald leans a little to the right, and he's still probably one of the funniest guys going today. But I'll tell you, if you hate Dane Cook and you hated Dane Cook in the 2000s, like I did, there was a movie, and then we'll actually get to Disney stuff. But there was a movie called Mr. Brooks, and it starred Kevin Costner and William Hurt. And Kevin Costner was this guy who had like a dual personality thing going, like he, on the surface he was a family man, and then at the next point he was killing people. And the movie's all right. It's not a great movie. It's an okay movie. But if you hated Dane Cook as much as I did in the 2000s, and this is not a spoiler because the movie's 12 years old, Dane Cook is in it as a guy who becomes obsessed with Kevin Costner's character and wants to help him like kill people and stuff. And it turns south when Kevin Costner basically takes his head off with a shovel and then buries him out in the park somewhere.
That sounds beautiful.
It was great. It's I remember it clearly to this day. But you know what? It doesn't matter. I mean, I don't even know how popular Dane Cook is anymore. He doesn't seem to be much of a threat to
He
to
got into some hot water. I'm gonna say it was like either like 2010 or 2012. He got into some hot water when I guess he was making some kind of really sexist joke, and someone in the audience commented like, I guess about being offensive to rape victims, and then he said like, I hope a bunch of people rape you on the way out or something like that. I think after that his career was done.
Oh, no, no, no. That was actually, I hate to correct you, that was Daniel Tosh.
Oh, that was Daniel Tosh?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep, Daniel Tosh. Daniel Tosh got called out, and then he said, wouldn't it be ironic if a bunch of people raped her in the parking lot?
See, they're both douchebags, so
Oh, yeah.
they just blend together.
They really do.
Douchebag comics just blend into each other and become one giant douche.
One of them's probably in this DC Comics butthurt fanboys group. And DC Comics movies fans, I'm sorry that DC and Warner Brothers have fucked you over like again and again and again. I'm really sorry.
Wonder Woman was the only good one, and it was because it was directed by a woman.
Wonder Woman was fantastic. There was no excuse for Batman versus Superman to be as terrible as it was. Um, that should not have been a miss.
Have
How
you
do you how do you screw that up?
have you seen the Nostalgia Critic review of that, where they also kind of like recap it through like acting?
No, I haven't.
It covered it really well because they had like the girl they usually get in to fill in female roles dressed as Wonder Woman, and like every soft move, and she'll just walk across the street and go hi, and like that pretty much summed up Wonder Woman in Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, pretty much. And but she had far and away because there are good pockets of moments in that movie. It's just hard to remember them because the movie goes on forever. But Wonder Woman definitely has all the best scenes, just about. I did enjoy. He's a douchebag, but I thought Ben Affleck's Batman was pretty solid, and I did like that fight scene in the warehouse near the end of the movie.
Ben
If they
Affleck's
could have just
pretty passable as Batman. I wish he would have his own solo Batman movie though, so we can get a better feel for his Batman.
which unfortunately it sounds like nobody wants to do that because it seems like as soon as people start working with Warner Brothers and DC Comics, about a year later they're like, kill me, because Affleck was doing all that stuff. He was going to direct a Batman movie, he was going to write a Batman movie, and then it became he's not writing it anymore, and then it was he's not directing it anymore, and then it's he doesn't want to be Batman anymore, and I'm like, what the fuck happened?
Can can we just have a movie where he's Batman and Mark Hamill's Joker?
That would be pretty cool. I could get behind anybody but Jared Leto. And you know what? I'd love to see more Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, and I'd like to see her in a better movie.
I'd like to see her as Harley Quinn, not Hot Topic appeal to teenagers Harley Quinn.
Yeah, well, that's certainly fair. Which is funny because I've seen her in two movies lately. I saw I, Tonya recently, and I thought she was just fantastic in that. And she's in the I was telling you about this movie I saw called Goodbye, Christopher Robin. She plays Christopher Robin's mother, and she does a great job in it. The movie itself is kind of so-so. It's a pretty standard British drama period piece, but she does a great job. And yeah, the more I see her in other stuff, the more I'm like, I'd be up to see her in a better Harley Quinn movie, which it sounds like we'll get the chance because it sounds like they're going to be making Margot Robbie Harley Quinn movies for the next 10 years.
And I hope she does just better, where it's like, or she's in a proper Harley Quinn outfit. Because I'm sorry, how they dress her is not. It doesn't make sense for her character. Like, yes, she's crazy and alternative and all of that, but she's also smart. So
Yep.
she would dress effectively for combat. Like, when she's first introduced in the animated series, she's in a full body, skin tight jumpsuit, but it's not sexualized, and it's clearly made so she can be in combat situations and defend Joker.
Right. I have to admit it's weird. I had no significant reaction to her costume in Suicide Squad. It was weird. I didn't think it was sexualized. I didn't think it was hot. I didn't think anything, honestly. Like I'll defer to you obviously because
You're the only guy I've heard who's like, so many guys come to me like, because I cosplay and they're like, and I cosplay Harley Quinn, and they're like, when are you gonna do Suicide Squad movie Harley Quinn? When are you gonna do that? And I'm like, I don't wanna. I don't like it. I also don't like the
I
fact that it'd be so easy to do. It just would cost a lot of money because you could literally probably buy every single piece of it, including the hair dye at Hot Topic. Like, if I bleached my hair and put in the Hot Topic hair dye, I could buy all the pieces there pretty much.
probably,
And
especially now.
for me, cosplay is not fun unless I make it myself or I pay a talented commissioner, like someone who really puts a lot of love and care into getting a look together to put a costume together and wear their work and represent their brand. If I can just buy all the pieces in a store, like a not even not even Party City, but just like a clothing store, to me that's cosplay. That's not cosplay when it comes to characters that are. I'm gonna quote it as like characters that are drawn, like characters that are based on
Sure.
like animation, comic books, anime, video games. I give credit to people who cosplay like live action things, like, live action TV shows and movies, because a lot of those characters are dressed in actual designer clothing. Like, that stuff is not always designed specifically for that role. A lot of it is just, especially on like, drama shows that are not period
Yeah.
dramas and like modern day,
I
like Doctor Who is a great example. Like, a lot of the
oh
clothing
yeah.
you see, except for when they do the period pieces, like, that's not, most of that stuff is not handmade for the show. That's from like local, like, British designers and boutiques, just like throwing out their latest stuff at BBC, saying, hey, put this on the Doctor, put this on the Companion, and you could go and find it. And yeah, it costs money because it's designer, but you can buy
I
the exact thing.
I learned that actually because a couple of years ago, I briefly debated about cosplaying as Bobby from Supernatural. Because
You're gonna be you're gonna be Bobby.
people kept telling me I should, and I love the character. He's my favorite character on the show,
Okay, this is
and
officially a Supernatural podcast now. Let's go.
I'm like 2 seasons behind. We probably shouldn't discuss the show, but I did learn that though the hard way, because I went and looked up like a typical outfit for him, and I learned that all the pieces of clothing I would have to buy were going to run me about $300, and which is hilarious to me because Bobby's whole shtick on the show was that he looks like a guy who just rolled out of bed.
Isn't it amazing that like the grungiest looking characters on TV and in movies, when you look up like the designer and the labels of the clothing they're wearing, it's like $100 for their jeans.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, like I've cosplayed Supernatural. I've done Meg,
Oh, that would be good.
Rachel Miner's Meg, like, because obviously there's been two Megs. Meg number 2,
Oh, that's right.
and I've done a female version of Castiel, a female version and a male version of Dean Winchester. I've been through my share of Supernatural cosplay, and
I think I knew the Castiel one. I think I knew you'd done that one.
so I tend to like go through, but I don't, and I never try with Supernatural to match the brand because I don't really pay attention. When I did Doctor Who though, I tried, and I do have to say, I have one of my many Doctor Who cosplays that is actually brand accurate because I happened to get the pieces when they were on sale from the designer's website, and that was River's song from the ending of Series 6, where she's wearing
Okay.
like the eye patch and stuff, and she has like that kind of the like the nice black suit outfit with the pencil skirt, and then the black shoes with the clear wedge heels.
Okay.
Those were all from the same designer and the same company. And yeah, if I got them new, like when they were first like putting them out there, it would have been hella expensive, and it still was because this is a British company, so I was still buying in pounds and not in dollars. And I had to like do the price conversion, but I got it for
Yeah.
like more than half off. But that's like my only Doctor Who cosplay that's 100% like brand accurate to what the actress was wearing in that episode. And I have accurate River song shoes from Time of the Angels. I think that's when it was, where she's wearing the deep red, blood red Louboutin heels when you first see her again in the 11 series.
I'm gonna say sure because my Doctor Who watching has been pretty spotty.
When she first comes back after, like, this is after David Tennant, like, first she appears as David Tennant, this is when she first comes back in the show, where the first thing you see is her walking in these like deep red high stiletto heels with a platform, and they're Louboutins,
Yeah,
and
yeah, okay.
I found them on sale. Louboutins are not cheap. If a girl
I
can
wouldn't imagine.
if a girl can, the reason why so many girls fake Louboutins by painting red bottoms on cheap high-heeled shoes is because the average price for a pair of Louboutins for the cheap basic ones is $500.
That's silly. I don't think that's the sum total of my entire wardrobe.
So yeah, I got them on like super duper sale just by chance. It was around Christmas time, and I guess that the vendor who was selling those shoes just happened to have my size left, and the only ones left, and he just wanted to get them out there to restock. And I got them for like $100. And everyone who knows the designer, they look, because I people like look it over going, are these the real McCoy? Did you get like a Chinese, fake off? Like, no, it's the real McCoy. And you got these for $100. These are over $1,000 new. So I got them for
And
90% off.
that's not bad.
They're kind of
And
they're like in a vault somewhere. I put them
yeah,
away.
that's fair. That's fair. No, that's fair. That's the kind of, like people leave property to their children or whatever. You probably should just leave those shoes. Um,
I'll will them to like some teenagers just in dire need of looking fabulous.
there you go. The last time I dressed in drag for Halloween, which was about 10 years ago, I learned the hard way, because I'm about a size 13 for shoes, and I learned the hard way that finding shoes in that size, because I even thought I'd get some heels or something, and I learned the hard way that finding size 13 heels, or whatever the female equivalent is damn difficult. Also, just in case anybody out there is listening to this and going, what the fuck, you guys are talking about Disney. To be fair, Disney's probably going to own everything we've talked about so far in the last 20 minutes, probably by the end of this decade. So
Yeah.
relax. We'll get to Disney shortly.
Bob Iger's goal is to take over the world. I have to say, just take some tips from RuPaul's Drag Race, especially Willem. Like, if you have big feet, the best thing to do is to buy heels that are open toe, like sandal heels.
Yeah.
So then you have to worry about your toes getting crushed. You just have to make
Well,
sure it has like an ankle strap so your actual heel doesn't slide off the shoe and you fall and break your neck. Because even women do that, and it's sad and
sure.
hilarious at the same time.
I don't understand how anybody can wear heels. But no, I've gained like 80 pounds since then, so probably not going to ever do that again. But
heels are like a fine art. Like there's a cute like little bit of heel just for a little bit of lift, and there's a nice kind of a sexual heel where it's like, okay, yeah, it really shows off the leg and the butt. And then there's the
yep.
high heels where you just wear it, especially if you're already kind of tall. Like I am. Like I'm on like the taller side at 5'8". Like at starting about 5'8", and you're female, you're starting to edge on the taller side. So when you're already that tall, and then you're in like heels above like 5 or 6 inches, then you're just kind of like strutting around feeling like a giraffe. You're just.
Are you really 5'8"?
I am 5'8", and I walk in. If I wear heels like higher than like 5 inches, I feel like a giraffe. I'm just like trying to like strut all gracefully, but I know I'm kind of like wobbly at the same time, just trying to stay upright. And I'm like, yep, just a newborn baby giraffe all alone in this world.
Granted, I haven't seen you in I haven't seen you in a long time. It's been about 10 years since I've seen you. But I just remember you being much, 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 much shorter. But that's okay.
After college, I hit this weird growth spurt. Like, I think in college, I was like 5'5", 5'6"-ish. So I was still like modeling, but I was doing more like average size, petite, not even petite, just like average size stuff. And then I just like shot up a couple of inches. I don't know if it was just all like the crazy energy that happened through the course of college and after, but all of a sudden I woke up and I'm like, huh, my feet are hanging off the edge of the bed. That used to not be a thing.
You didn't like stop by a fortune telling machine or something the night before and wish to be big, did you?
No, and
No.
I guess genetics just work weirdly that way, because my mom is like 5'9", and my dad's over 6 feet tall, but no one could tell for a long time my mom was as tall as she was, because she had, scoliosis and back problems for years, like for over 10 years. So people now she's her actual height. Like now she's an inch taller than me because she finally got surgery that like straightened out her spine. So now it's like, oh, she is tall. And then people meet my dad, and yeah, he's like 6'2", 6'3". So I'm like, hey, Dad, what's up? How you doing?
My mom, I don't know my biological father, but my mother, who I take after mostly, I take after my mother's side of the family anyway. My mother is a good 2 feet shorter than me. She's very, very, very tiny. So I'm 5'11", so I clearly didn't take after her on the height side of things, but we're like 22 minutes in. Do you think we should like at least reference Disney?
This is just what happens. It's like you get a couple of people who joke around, and we just wind up dicking around. So,
Yeah, and
so
we never speak. We do talk, but we don't talk on the phone really outside of this show. I think we had one conversation back when I wanted to do a podcast with you. I think we had one conversation just to feel out because we had talked in a long time, and I just wanted to feel out our banter. And of course, I never got around to doing a podcast, but no, we just rarely speak, and it's nice to hear from you.
So it's like, yo, what's up? And it's nice to have people just like bounce off of because, you know,
Absolutely.
some people know that like I'm a comedian, but other people be like, you're a comedian? And it's like, well, not around you because I can't bounce off you.
I always thought you were very funny. That's why it's funny. I'm going to Katsicon in 2 weeks, and that's where, of course, we met 11 years ago. It'll be 11 years that since we met because we met at the staff dinner in 2007.
Oh, shit.
And
Yeah.
yep, and because I couldn't find a place to sit because my girlfriend at the time, the same one I saw Cars with actually, she had got to the dinner ahead of me and there was nowhere to sit, so I had to go find a place to sit.
I'm always just like, yo, come hang out with me. I like hanging out with people.
Yeah, and I met your mother. So it's interesting that you were telling me about your mom's height because I don't think I've ever actually seen your mother standing. I think I only ever saw her that one time, and then I think I saw her again like a year later. But because I saw her. I saw her the year after that, and I don't think I saw her again.
Yeah, and I'm not doing Katsugon this year because this year I'm away working.
When was the last time you did Katsicon?
I'm gonna say 2009 or 2010 when I
Okay,
was still
yeah.
when I was doing school up in Philly. Because after that, flying from Texas is just not worth it.
Oh, I know. Like I have to. Getting off Long Island is a nightmare, and I see why people don't do it. Because I have to take a Long Island Railroad train into the city, and then I have to take a Greyhound. And I'm going to be super lazy though. Usually, what I do is when I get to DC, I take a bunch of metro stops and stuff. But I think this time, since I actually make a little money these days, that I might just take a fucking Uber or a Lyft from Union Station straight to National Harbor.
I remember the first year the Katsugon was at the Gaylord, and as you know, I worked the green room, which is in one of
Yes.
like the presidential suites. So imagine one of the presidential suites at the Gaylord.
Oh, I know. My God, those places are huge. Um,
It was funny because you know back in those days phones like could take video but they were like really pixelated and crappy and terrible, but I had
yeah.
to take video because I went into the bathroom of that suite and there were TVs all up in the bathroom. There was a TV by the toilet, there was a TV in the shower, and there was a TV in the jacuzzi bathtub, and I'm
Yep.
just like, why?
I mean, sometimes you just want to watch TV while you're pooping. I guess.
To be fair,
No,
talking about Katsucon, a lot of people who've worked on Disney video games have been guests at Katsucon.
this is true. Um, oh, real quick before we talk about that, do you know what I do at Katsicon now?
Have you leveled up?
Kind of. Mostly just because I've been there forever. I run the Maid Cafe security now.
That sounds both incredibly exciting and incredibly boring.
I'll take boring. Honestly, I just got to, last year I got done doing the overnight shift at a furries convention, and I remembered what it was like to work overnight or to work during the more chaotic shifts at a convention. And I'm good with boring, honestly. My job is 90% making sure creepers don't bother the maids, which honestly doesn't happen a lot, and making sure nobody blocks the little atrium where the maids go to get their stuff. Half my day is getting yelled at by people because I tell them they can't stand in front of the doors.
Part of me is sad I haven't been to CatsCon in a while because I've seen the photos taken there of cosplay and just
Yeah.
how that hotel is laid out. It makes cosplays look absolutely amazing without even photographers needing any extra lighting or leaving the property to take good photos just in that area with just the
Yeah.
natural lighting from the sun through the windows. Phenomenal photos.
And just that whole area in the back, behind, uh, I'm not good at describing these things. It's it's basically the area near the restaurant on the bottom floor, and then if you go down some steps from there, you've got the pool, and just kind of all these weird little concrete garden areas, and then if you keep going further down, you get to the docks. But there's all these great out, and I mean, granted, it's February, so the people who are out there doing cosplay photo sessions are like, freezing to death, but there's all these incredible outdoor spaces to do it. And then of course indoors. And yeah, there's just for cosplay stuff. That's one of my main reasons why I still like going to conventions, is just the cosplays have just gotten better and better and better. And I can guarantee you, speaking of Disney, that you're going to see some pretty amazing Disney princess cosplays, because I almost always do.
And I always find it interesting with the Disney princess cosplays because Disney is always very protective of their image and their copyright and their IPs. And I feel
Yeah.
like with cosplay, you toe a fine line because you get like the really popular cosplayers who like get booths and sell prints, and I'm like, I feel like they draw a line if they sell prints of their Disney characters. Like that's where they cross the line.
Are they crossing the line? Are you saying they cross the line as far as you're concerned, or as far as Disney's concerned?
As far as Disney be concerned, like, I've cosplayed Rapunzel. And I've done photo shoots, but I've never tried to sell prints of that just because I've looked up what Disney has just done to people, who dress up as Disney princesses for birthday parties. Even if they charge, like, less than $100. They're not even charging that much. You're charging pretty much the cost of, like, the gas to get to the party and maybe, to get them something nice afterwards. You're not charging a whole lot, and they go to town on them. So if people are making money, touring conventions, selling prints, especially because a lot of cosplayers look just as good, if not better, than some of the official princesses in the parks.
Sure.
I feel like that might miff Disney, because I already know the adult industry and Disney do not get along, and that's why you will likely never see any adult productions using a Disney property. Because in the past, when they try to get around it using like fairy tales and stuff, Disney still actually won lawsuits, which usually can't happen because they can claim parody, but Disney had the power.
So what do you think? So I guess the super, because I know that there's a lot of there's been some pretty high concept porn parodies of the Avengers movies and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and those seem to keep coming out. So I guess it's specifically the princesses, maybe?
I think it's specifically the stuff that Disney makes that is aimed specifically at families. I think they already kind of knew going into it with like the superhero thing, and even Star Wars, there was already an adult fan base.
Yeah.
But there's really no excuses for characters like Mickey Mouse or the princesses or the characters that they make, for kids.
Ho, here comes the big one.
I know for a fact some disgruntled Disney animators have made just the worst things, either comic form or even just like quick animated form, just because they're really disgruntled. I know that exists somewhere. I know it.
Oh, of course. It has to. Of course. I'm sure that goes back. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what...
I bet it goes back to the original days when it was like Walt and like 10 people animating. That, like,
sure.
One of them would get like, pissed at Walt one day behind his back, like make a quick little short of just Mickey being absolutely terrible.
So how did Family Guy? Because I remember Family Guy did a pretty brutal bit in that context, and you might remember this, where Walt is drawing Minnie. He's doing a portrait of Minnie Mouse, and he tells her to take off her top, or it's something like that. He tells her to take off her top or dress or whatever, and she starts crying, and then he threatens her with something, and she's crying, and she's taking off the dress, and he goes back to sketching, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's it."
that makes me wonder too, because it makes me wonder if maybe certain people can get away with things if they're friends with people high up at Disney, and what they're making is not being targeted at their audience. Because like
Fair enough.
South Park did an episode where they really tore to Disney. Remember when the Jonas Brothers were big?
Yes, unfortunately.
They did that. They did it. There was a South Park episode where Kenny had a girlfriend and she was into the Jonas Brothers, so he kept taking her to the concerts. And the Jonas Brothers were like pushing the thing with like, you know, promise rings and being abstinent. And then it gets into the whole like marketing mentality behind that, because it's like, oh, if these, you know, sexy, you know, idol boys that, you know, little girls like look up to and are attracted to, you know, are preaching abstinence and everything's okay because these girls can still get all hot and bothered and buy tickets to see them, but we're not selling them anything bad. And we
I
make
do
a ton,
remember. I
and
do.
we make a ton of money, huh? And it's in, when they bring out the boss, and the boss is Mickey Mouse saying all these horrible things.
Yep, I do remember that. I don't know. It seems to vary. Like Disney seems at this
They
point.
seem most protective of the princesses, because I've seen like some raunchy Tinkerbell stuff, and they not seem to care, but they seem to really, really care about that princess brand.
Which sounds like a good segue into what we were talking about the other day about overrated Disney princesses. Haha, see what I did there?
Like how much I hate Aurora. I hate her. I hate her so much. I hate her.
You know, it took me, I had to look it up, and partially just because I haven't seen that movie in 20 years. You know, I was a very, in certain contexts, I was a very typical little boy. Like, I didn't like a lot of the Disney princess movies. Because I thought they were too.
And that's the worst, because Sleeping Beauty is marketed as a Disney princess movie where Aurora, or Briar Rose, as she's called in part of it, is like the lead character and the heroine. And she's hardly even in it. Most of the action is Prince Philip or the fairies.
Yeah, my wife and I were talking about that because I mentioned your hard on against her to my wife Kara, and I was surprised that Kara remembered the movie so well, but because I don't remember. I remember the last 20 minutes of Sleeping Beauty vividly, and that's about it. I should probably go back and watch a couple of them. I actually sat down a little while ago, probably a month ago, and I watched Snow White, and I don't remember why. I was probably on drugs or something, but I sat down and I watched Snow White, and I would make a case that Snow White is somewhat overrated, specifically the character, and specifically in that Disney film. That's not a knock against the movie. The movie is amazing for its time, and it still has a certain fascination, and there's still a certain appeal to it. But
it's just the funny thing about that is like the characters that do the most. It's like the queen slash the witch, the dwarves, and the animals. Snow White hardly does crap, and her prince is in it for like 3 seconds.
Yep. No, it was funny. The reason why I watched Snow White was because I was listening to Spotify and I'd heard Tom Waits' cover of Hi Ho, which is exactly what you think it would sound like. Because you know, the howling demons of the damned or something. But no, when we talked about this the other day, I started kind of like scouring through my memories of I need to watch Tangled again, but I know that's a big one for you. And I saw it once all the way through, and then I saw 10 minutes, and then I saw probably about 50 10-minute snippets of it because my one of my godchildren loved that movie when she was probably, oh God, she was probably 4 or 5, but that was for a little while, that was her favorite movie. And I sat down and watched it with her once, and it was great. It was great. And I see a lot of stuff right now on a lot of memes talking about how Tangled is better than Frozen, and I do agree with that very strongly. But I do think I also think it's a little unfair to the earlier movies because I mean, let's face it, the focus of those earlier Disney movies wasn't to create strong female characters.
Cinderella for her time was freaking amazing because she had a ton of
Yes,
agency.
that's true. That's very true. I was just about to say Cinderella is probably the only exception I can think of offhand.
She had
Uh,
agency. She was the main character of her movie. She,
yep,
people are saying it's like, oh, but she didn't really do much. Like she was very passive, and it's like, well, for that time period, she showed a lot of strength, and she still got things done while being, kind and gentle. It's
right.
like she showed
And
a lot of feminine strength, and considering she was essentially held captive and
I was
abused.
just I was just about to say that, like, people who say she's too passive, I don't know if they've ever been in an abusive family situation or an abusive relationship. Um, I mean, these days there's definitely better ways to handle that kind of thing. But for its time, like you said, I think the movie, whether it meant to or not, gave her a really potent element of courage that carried her through the more passive moments of the movie. And then as she became a little more assertive, openly assertive of what she wanted and what she deserved, it made sense because you saw that strength from the beginning. And I don't know, honestly, if that was the way they had set out to make the movie, but that was the way I had always read into it.
I do have like one little funny thing with that movie, and it's the joke. It's like, how many times does the prince say anything in that movie? Because he has like maybe 2 lines, and it's like waiting for it. It's like, is he gonna talk? Is he gonna? There it is.
Oh my God. I have a potentially controversial one I could throw out. I think Ariel's a little overrated.
Oh, I'm not a. I don't like her. I don't like. I like
Um,
Little Mermaid because I like Ursula.
sure, I like Ursula, and I like the music, and that was one of those movies where even when I was a little boy who thought Disney princess movies were a little girly, uh, I still secretly liked that movie because the energy of it and all of the other characters and everything. And I will say I cannot think of her name right now, but the woman who did the voice of Ariel did an excellent job. Um,
Oh yeah, she was also the voice of Thumbelina.
yes, yes, and she did something else. I'm trying to remember now, but they had her do some voice. I want to. What was that movie about the Disney princess who wound up in the real world? Was that Enchanted?
Yes.
Yes. I know the woman who did the voice of Ariel is in that movie, and I don't remember what she does, but I know she's in that movie. I didn't see it. It didn't really look like something that I would enjoy, but
I feel like back in like the 90s when like it was on home video, Little Mermaid was like secretly really popular with a lot of boys who had VCRs, and you could just kind of like pause on individual frames because when she first like loses her mermaid body and gets
yeah.
legs, and it's like you just kind of like stop, and it's like, do I see any boobies, any vajayjay? Is there any vajayjay? Did they draw
I
it?
remember. Well, I can tell you, yeah, no, but I didn't quite do that. But I can tell you that one thing that was very distinctive in terms of as a child helping me figure out what I like, helping me figure out where I was, in terms of like sexual stuff. I remember the one scene when I was a little kid where she pops out of the water and she has that face of just incredible ecstasy.
The money shot.
Yeah, pretty much. And I saw the movie a few years ago, and I saw that I got to that part, and I just kind of went, "Shit, that was for children." Like, and I know it wasn't inherently. I'd like to think that they didn't make it and set out to make it sexual, but they drew her sexy, and the
Well,
way she came out of the. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Glenn Keane is the one who designed and modeled her and animated her. Like he was the whole premise of her character, and he modeled her after his wife.
Wow, I didn't
And
know that.
whenever I drop that bomb, people always get afraid because they're like, "Are you gonna say he modeled her after his daughter?" I'm
No,
like,
thank.
no, he modeled her after his wife, but because of how he designed Ariel and how successful that movie was, his design of her kind of set the precedence for the models of like pretty much every Disney princess after that.
Yeah, and because if nothing else, and I mean Disney's getting better at at doing different things, but for a long time Disney, especially in the '90s, which eventually was why I think people started kind of getting sick of Disney towards the end of the '90s. Um, Once The Little Mermaid came out and as successful as it was, and speaking as somebody who was around when that movie came out, I remember how successful that movie was. It definitely created a template that Disney stuck to pretty intently through most of the '90s. And I mean, they
It
still,
got worse after Beauty and the Beast because that was nominated
yeah,
for like Best Picture, and then they became like Oscar grubbing whores after that.
yep.
As Pocahontas is like the most blatant example of that. Pocahontas was, we want an Oscar.
Oh, I know. And it was really funny. I had the kind of childhood where it literally, as soon as that movie was announced, my mom made it a point of telling me in great detail why that movie was complete horse shit.
I hate it.
Um,
I hate that movie. I hate it.
oh, I do too. There,
Except the part where like if you Ratcliffe's little gay assistant, he's pretty cool.
yeah. No, and it's beautiful. The movies, the animation in the movie, it was a hallmark for Disney's animation quality at that point. But it was also kind of a turning point in the sense that people were starting to kind of see that Disney template, and they were starting to get a little tired of it. Because I know that that movie's probably, and I mean, there's certain elements of that movie that have aged really well, especially the stuff about the tribes kind of being like, stay the fuck away from white people.
It's
I
it's
see
it's
memes.
now a gif now. It's these white men are dangerous. That's a
Yep,
gif.
yep, it is. I see it all over the place, and it's fair enough. It's certainly fair enough. But the movie was still such an incredibly even if you didn't know the true story of Pocahontas, the movie was still just incredibly vapid, and
And
it was.
Moana is like the perfect apology for that movie because
Yep.
it shows a native girl, a native land with a native people, and it shows them speaking. It shows like you have movies in English, but then there's that one song "We Know the Way" where they're speaking in their actual native language. That gives you the idea that yes, you're hearing it in your own language, but these characters are actually a different culture, a different everything, and they're speaking something else.
Yeah.
And they had a
Well,
really
and I
good way of doing that. They kind of did it in Pocahontas. They kind of alluded to it in the music in the beginning. And for like a second, Pocahontas, when she first encounters John Smith, she speaks a little bit of Powhatan. But then it's, listen with your heart, you will understand.
oh,
English!
Jesus, just gave me a terrible flashback of when I sat through that movie. Um, no, I hated Pocahontas when it came out. I did like Mulan a lot, and I'm pleased to see that movie holding up really well 20 years later, 20 years down the road.
Because everybody
Uh,
loves Shang. Mushu, I think Mushu did not age well because Eddie Murphy being a comedy sidekick, especially after Shrek, did not age well. But
no,
everything else aged really well. Like Harvey Firestein always ages well,
I
and
forget what's in there. Um, it was so sad that the first time anybody had heard from Harvey in like years was over the Harvey Weinstein thing.
him correcting
Um,
people. It's like I'm Harvey Firestein.
um, it's funny. Because I love that guy. I've always liked that guy. Mrs. Doubtfire, Def to Smoochie, and I know for a fact he was one of the first Simpsons guest stars. He was one of the first notable Simpsons guest stars, and the people from The Simpsons always talked about how he was the first guy, one of the first guest stars they ever had, who was actually proud to do the show.
Aw, good for you. Good for you, Harvey Firestein. He's in BoJack Horseman in season 4.
He is in BoJack Horseman season 4. No, but it was really funny. You saw that guy all over the place in the '90s, and then he just kind of dropped out.
But in Mulan, he was king of the rock, and there's nothing you girls can do about it.
Oh, I know. He was great. And you know what? In Eddie Murphy's defense, I would honestly say that Mushu was not the same as Donkey.
He wasn't, but what was awful was the direct-to-video sequel where Mushu's in it, but he's voiced by a white guy impersonating Eddie Murphy.
Oh, well,
It's terrible.
is that really what they did?
It's a white guy impersonating Eddie Murphy.
Oh no. How did that not oh my God. I knew there was a sequel to Milan. I didn't
They couldn't afford to get Eddie Murphy back for the sequel.
Well, of course they could. No.
But they couldn't even afford to get a black guy.
I always liked for the second Aladdin movie, they couldn't get Robin Williams because he was mad at them. So they got Dan Castellaneta, who does a really good Robin Williams impression. He does it on The Simpsons all the time. And then I guess they kissed and made up with Robin because he came back for the third Aladdin movie. But what about this live action Aladdin movie? What do you reckon on that? What do you think?
I forget who's playing Genie.
Will Smith.
I'll give it a chance. So it would have been better if it was Sinbad to make up for the whole Shazam.
Poor Sinbad.
To make up for that whole Shazam whole the
yeah, where they thought he had been in Shazam,
which never existed. The movie was called Kazam, and it starred Shaq.
Yep. Which was fun. Well, to be fair, Sinbad did a lot of bad '90s movies, and it's not inconceivable that he would have done a movie like that, but he didn't.
And so, I mean, it could have also gone to Sinbad, but I'll give Will Smith some credit. We'll see what he can do, but it's still not Robin Williams.
He's probably one of the only actors in his age group and in his price range who doesn't seem to just phone his performances in. So I'm confident that he'll do a really good job in Aladdin. I'm also part of this group of people. I'm not going to shit on people who are excited about all these live action remakes of Disney movies, but I have to admit that I don't have a lot of interest in seeing them.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast was very boring to me. No.
Beauty and the Beast almost put me to sleep. Although I will say Kevin Kline was fantastic as Belle's father.
Yes, but live action Jungle Book was a little scary. Like, don't take your children to it because it will scare them.
Oh no!
Because
it's funny.
The animals look so real, and because in the it's more based on the book than the actual Disney film, hence why it's longer. So you actually see animals like hurting and killing each other and on fire, and it's like, no, don't show that to your kid. Though
Jungle Book. Go ahead.
I have to say, oh no, his name escapes me. Shit, he played King Louis in the live-action Jungle Book.
Oh, I don't know offhand.
Christopher Walken.
Oh, was he really?
Yes, he's King Louis, and he sang the song, the shooby doo. I wanna be like you, but he sang it in such a creepy way, and it's so much better than the original version because it sounds better when Christopher Walken sings it. It's usually just like shooby doo. I wanna be like you. I wanna walk like you.
I can't do
like
a Christopher.
you.
I wish I could do a Christopher Walken.
Shooby doo.
I want to walk. No, we'll have to cut out the part where I tried to do a Christopher Walken impression just now.
But like, it's amazing.
It's funny. The Jungle Book, the new Jungle Book, might be the only Bill Murray movie that I haven't seen.
He's not that great as Baloo. He's not that great.
He's not a great. I'll say I'm probably one of the biggest Bill Murray fans on the planet, but with the exception of Fantastic Mr. Fox, I don't think he's a very good voice actor.
He's not.
I'll defend Fantastic Mr. Fox because There's nowhere else on the planet where you get to hear Bill Murray and George Clooney making badger and fox noises while they're yelling at each other.
That's amazing.
But no, he's not. And I know of course, he's going to be the new Wes Anderson animated movie's coming out soon. I cannot think of the name of it now. It's like Dog Island or something. Um, I know he's going to be doing a voice for that, but no, he's not a very good voice actor.
And then Scarlett Johansson as Ka. That was actually kind of intense.
Oh yeah, she's. I mean, I've. She brings a really disconcerting intensity to any voice stuff that she does. Um, and I do remember reading the cast. I didn't remember who played King Louis, but I do remember that she was Khan, and I thought that was a really good idea.
And Idris Elba was Shere Khan. That was like the best casting decision ever.
You might have just talked me into watching it one of these days.
I
And
vote
I don't have
Idris Elba should be in everything.
absolutely. He should be James Bond, but that's another podcast.
But no, have you seen? There's a bit by Trevor Noah about how, and he's speaking as a black person, how Idris Elba as James Bond would not work considering the settings of the James Bond movies. Like, let's say James Bond is on a mission in Scotland. There's no black people in Scotland.
There's a few.
How could he escape the bad guys?
I actually have a friend who's black and lives in Scotland.
But you gotta think about it. Has so few of them. And then, like, the bad
It's true.
guys. You have to watch the pics. It's perfect. It's just like... There he is! There he is!
Yeah, for real. No, but I honestly I don't really care for James Bond as a character anyway. So there's all this talk about, a woman should play James Bond or a person of color should play James Bond. And I'm like, well, maybe they should like play better characters. Maybe they should get to be better characters because,
Maybe we need a fresher character than James Bond. Maybe we need a modern James Bond who's not James Bond, who's something else.
yeah, like I think, I don't know. I've never been a huge James Bond fan. So I never have a strong opinion about this. Although, like seemingly everybody on the planet, I liked Skyfall. So
I also watch in like 2 years. Disney's gonna own James Bond too.
probably.
They're on a goal to take over the world. Like they're buying everything. Like
I know.
all these DC fanboys are gonna pee themselves when Disney buys DC. Imagine if they did that. Imagine they did that. Imagine you went to a theme park and you saw Batman and Iron Man in the same park.
The future is terrible. That's all I can really say. No, them buying Fox is still something that's just spinning my head. And the downside of that is that I'm a big fan of the Aliens movies, and now no one knows what the hell's going to happen with those.
Well, the Aliens was in the Disney parks because Michael Eisner was a big fan of the franchise. So on the Great Movie Ride, there was a section that took place in Alien, and you got to see the xenomorphs.
Oh, I mean that's something, I guess.
But I don't know if Bob Iger likes them. But technically, because there's a Queen Mother alien, all of her offspring are Disney princesses.
Yeah, I know. I'll say this much for Bob Iger. Bob seems to be down with anything that's going to make a lot of money. So, and he seems to be pretty content to just let it, in the interest of making money, of just letting whoever gets that job doing whatever they want. Not whatever they want, but
I will laugh hysterically though that by the time they put all this work into opening up these Star Wars themed immersive, lands and the immersive Star Wars hotel and have all their movies out, people just have no interest in Star Wars anymore and it all just flops.
That would be pretty funny.
We laugh hysterically because they already took a huge gamble making a whole land based on Avatar, which came out in like 2009. And the sequel's still not out yet. Like, most people going have, like, maybe seen the movie once or never seen it.
I've now seen Avatar It's really funny how we talk about Avatar every time I do the show. I've now seen Avatar 3 times, and which was really 2 times too many. But I did see it recent. I actually watched it recently because the guys at Riff Tracks did a commentary for it, the Mystery Science Theater guys, and that's definitely Avatar is a perfect movie for that kind of thing too, like a big self-important, uh, empty sci-fi. I don't know. I don't even know what that fucking movie was.
It's pretty, and Zoe Saldana is amazing in it, but and
Yes,
also, let's see, she was amazing in it. Sigourney
Sigourney Weaver.
Weaver is always amazing in it, but everything else sucked.
Sigourney Weaver was the only thing, by the way, the only thing that the Riff Tracks guys wouldn't make fun of.
That's pretty great. Sigourney Weaver was also the best part of Finding Dory because she was Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah. I don't actually know how you felt about Finding Dory. I loved it to bits, but
I liked it, but I just couldn't help but die every time I heard like that typical like theme park aquarium kind of announcement. I'm Sigourney Weaver. Welcome to the Marine Life Institute. I'm like, and then Dory's like, oh hi Sigourney. Sigourney's gonna help us.
I loved Ed O'Neill as the octopus as well.
And I forget who played the beluga whale.
Oh, I don't know offhand, but hey, keeping that Idris Elba connection alive, he was in that too.
Oh shit, who was he?
He was one of the SEALs, I thought.
Oh yeah. All right, Gerald was also a good part of the movie. He just wanted from Gerald's perspective, the whole plot of Finding Dory was to just get on that rock.
I mean, and Finding Dory was good. With the exception of Cars, Pixar has a pretty good track record with their sequels.
Monsters Inc. Monsters University was a little weak.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah, it was a little weak, but it was pretty good for the most part. It was pretty good, and I'm glad they did a prequel because I wasn't really interested in a sequel to that.
Yeah, no, and I like people's theory that Boo is the witch in Brave.
Oh, I love that whole the Pixar universe is connected thing. I love it. I love that.
It kind of makes sense.
It does. Didn't somebody from Pixar confirm that?
I think they didn't confirm it, but they didn't deny it.
Ah.
Which makes me wonder, how Coco kind of fits into all that. Like, Coco had a good teaser, because it kind of gave you a basic idea for the movie.
I actually watched Coco again the other night because Kara hadn't seen it, so we sat down and watched it last night.
It's amazing.
Oh, it's wonderful. And I liked it even more. I honestly liked it even more the second time around. And the animation was it was the best Pixar animation to date. I loved the voice cast, and I loved that even though the movie was, I believe, either written or directed by white people or both, that they solicited a lot, that they brought in a lot of other people who actually knew the culture, people who actually knew what the movie was trying to do in order to give the movie not just like a token authenticity, but something that would actually speak to not just the typical person going to the movies, but the people who actually know that culture and know those kinds of stories and that kind of history. It was just a great movie all around, and I'd say Pixar still has a pretty good track record with me, at least.
I'm just a little nervous because the teaser for Incredibles 2 shows Jack as a baby, and I was hoping with this much time passed since the first one, he'd be aged up a little. We could see him as kind of like Dash's age, where he's kind of got his powers a little bit more figured out, and he's dealing with that. And, maybe like Dash and Violet are more adults, and you get to see their struggles with being supers and see how the world's changed since supers came back.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens when the movie comes out. I don't know which I would prefer, if they had acknowledged a significant passage of time or if they would just set it relatively shortly after the first movie. Um, I am pleased that John Ratzenberger will be coming back as I cannot think of the villain from the end of the first one.
Oh, the something minor.
Yeah, yeah. Because
I
John Ratzenberger is in every single Pixar movie.
I'm just like I hope it's good. I genuinely hope he's good.
I hope so too. I'm confident though. Again, Pixar has a pretty good track record with their sequels, and there's definitely a lot of room to tell another story. The one that I'm a little apprehensive about, although I love the story that they're going to be going with, is Toy Story 4
Yeah,
because it's going to be pretty hard. It's pretty hard to come back from that
the
third story
third was like
conclusion.
the perfect book ending.
Right.
It was perfect. Why
I
mess with
do like
perfection?
because the movie made what $1 billion. But I like the story because the story has it that they're going to go rescue Bo Peep. And for me personally, that was one of the most gut-wrenching things in Toy Story 3 was that throwaway line about how Bo Peep and the other ones weren't there anymore.
I wondered about that because like Bo Peep was like Woody's love interest,
Yeah.
and like Jesse and Buzz is kind of hysterical.
Oh, I know because you have to imagine. I mean, if we want to think about it a little hard, you have to imagine that if these toys are doing anything, you know, sexual with each other, then you have to imagine that at some point Buzz called Jesse Woody. You have to imagine that happened.
Oh no! Oh, that put the worst image in my brain. I
And
just
then it's just really awkward.
I just like the gags where like something happens and like his wings like sparkly just spring out.
Yep, yep, yeah. When she does like, because I think she goes on a loop or something, and like she does this great tumble or this great jump or something, and she like lands in a really amazing way, and yeah, and Buzz's wings go.
It's amazing.
Toy Story 2, like I went back and forth for a long time between my favorite Toy Story movie. I still think it is actually Toy Story 2. Um, because I like that story. I just like that concept of of Woody coming to grips. Like Toy Story 3 got deeper into it, but I liked Woody coming to grips with the fact that, you know, everything has an ending. And I initially was really nervous about Toy Story 3 because I liked the fact that they had acknowledged that things come to an end, but I was like, do I really want to see that ending? Like, do I really want to see the end of Woody's the end of Woody's life, or close to the end of Woody's life? And I guess the answer was yes, of course, since Toy Story 3 was fic.
There's an amazing theory about Toy Story, and that like given the time period of like Woody's Roundup and stuff, and that you know Woody being such a rare and valuable toy, like how Andy could possibly possess it, is that he like that toy was passed down from his dad. And if you notice, like there's no dad in any of the movies, so you can think that maybe the dad has passed away, and that's part
I
of
assume so.
why they moved. And that the Andy scribbled on the bottom of Woody, that Andy was senior.
Well, that's a thought. Didn't Buzz have the same Andy on his foot though, or do you think that was just like the same little kid scrawl?
I think it's like the same little kid scrawl, or at the time, like they could only like kind of like copy paste. But it's interesting to
That's
think
fair.
about because given the age of some of the toys, like those weren't around during the time period that you know Andy would have been growing up. Those are really old toys. So where do they come from?
Yeah. Um. Well, you know, what's funny is that my mom kept all of her toys. My mom was a very weird little kid. She literally wouldn't. She had half of her toys. She wouldn't take them out of the box. So she got older. She had all of these Barbies and stuff. She sold most of them since then, but she had all these old Barbies, all this other stuff that never came out of the box. Actually, my mom, and I know she still has these, my mom, back in the early 90s, Mattel used to put out these limited edition Disney Princess Barbies.
I vaguely remember this.
This was, yeah, I was a little kid when they did this, because they had one, I think they stopped doing it after, like, Beauty and the Beast, but they were very, very limited edition, even at the time they were released, and my mom would buy them all. My mom was a big Disney fan, not so much anymore, because I suppose Disney just means something different now, but, because, yeah, you gotta understand, my mom was born the year Disneyland opened, and so that generation's experience with Disney is very different from the one that even I had in the 90s, and it's certainly different from the Disney experience that people have now.
Yeah, like her time, like Disney was when Walt was still on TV.
Yep.
And she could like see things happen and the magic happening, and we didn't have that. We couldn't really see the magic happening.
No, because by then it was less about, and I mean, Walt was always in it to make money, but there was still clearly a desire to create something for reasons other than money. Like, he was certainly motivated by financial means. I mean, he was a businessman at the end of the day, but there was still a desire to create something, to do a creative thing. Like, it wasn't just a money-making measure. And, of course, by the time we came along, our generation, yours and mine, it was much more calculated. And it was, like, I remember the Disney commercials from when I was a little kid, basically hyping the magic that was just implied by virtue of Disneyland's existence when my mom was a kid. So I always think that's interesting. My mom doesn't really have any interest in Disney anymore. And I know.
I have a terribly unpopular opinion. I don't like Disney's Winnie the Pooh. I liked the shorts from the 60s. I loved Winnie the Pooh and the Very Blustery Day, or whatever it's called, is fantastic. It's definitely different if you've read the books, and I was very, very into the books when I was a kid. They're definitely different, but I did actually like the most recent Winnie the Pooh movie, the one, I think it was literally just called Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, it came out like 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, the 2011 one.
Yep. I did that a lot. If anything, I thought it was the least Disney-like Pooh story that they had ever told.
I think what bothered me so much is that Winnie the Pooh became so Disney-fied and the characters' looks in the Disney version so iconic that people wouldn't recognize the looks from the original illustrations.
Oh, no, certainly not. You'd think I'd remember the name of the illustrator since I'm watching, since I just saw that movie, but, his last name was Shepard, and his illustrations.
I had a plush of Tigger, but not like the Disney Tigger, the Tigger based on the original illustrations from the books I got when I was a kid. I bet it's worth a ton of money now, but I have no idea where it is.
I had a Winnie the Pooh that was modeled after the illustrations when I was 10 or 11 years old, because I was a weird kid. And then I grew up to continue collecting animals, so there you go. But, no, I liked Winnie the Pooh, the Disney Winnie the Pooh, but I definitely didn't like it as much as the books. And always kind of ashamed that only Disney's ever really, at this point, the reason why people remember Winnie the Pooh is because of Disney. I mean, if no one had ever adapted those stories into an animated movie, I don't think people would remember them today. So it's a little complicated in that sense, because I'm glad people still remember the stories and love the characters. I do also remember as a kid, when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, ABC Saturday mornings, because I used to watch ABC specifically when I was a little kid, because Ghostbusters was on the air still, and they had House at Pooh Corner. Or The Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I think it was called The Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Was it an animated show, or was it like puppets?
It was an animated show, and it was a really interesting show because they would often go out of the 100 Acre Woods. Like, it was
It was it was a pretty weird show because it was in that same era of Gummy Bears and the other Saturday morning Disney animated shows that were on ABC at that time. Not the syndicated shows like Tailspin and Chippendale, but like the shows that they actually would put on Saturday mornings back when network TV did Saturday morning cartoons.
I don't think any of them do that anymore, except maybe like PBS.
Yeah, well, and that's a whole other thing. No, Fox, I believe Fox was the last network to hold on to Saturday morning cartoons because they were still doing, up until I graduated from high school, I think they were still doing a Saturday morning block. Of course, there's no point to Saturday morning cartoons now because everybody has cable or Netflix or I don't know, Amazon. So you can just watch all these shows now. I watched a whole season of Tiny Toons the other day.
What's driving me crazy is that I think Bob Iger's goal is to take over the world.
Probably.
He's gonna buy everything. And no more original ideas. This is Bob Iger's Disney. You can't have an original creative thought. No. I'm just gonna buy things that already exist and already make money. And then we're gonna repackage them and sell them.
Well, I mean, we're all probably going to die in a nuclear holocaust soon anyway, so it probably doesn't matter. But you're right; it does certainly seem to be heading that way. And it was really fun. It's really funny because when they announced that Disney was buying Fox, most of my friends, most of the comments I saw directed at it were really built around like, oh, now the Xenomorphs are Disney princesses, or now Deadpool's a Disney princess, and I'm like, that's funny and all, but do you guys understand, like, why this might not be a good thing?
Because Disney's making a monopoly?
Yeah, and, it's really funny that Simpsons called Disney buying Fox 20 years ago.
Who was writing those scripts at that time? I swear they were psychic.
Oh, I'm trying to remember who wrote that episode, because it was the one...
Are they the same... Is that the same writer who wrote that episode predicting Trump would win and be president?
I want to say no. But
if they were, that'd be super creepy. And there should be a supernatural episode about them as a psychic.
Of course, the hilarious thing is that a lot of Pixar stuff has been written and directed by people who got their start during the prime seasons of The Simpsons, especially Brad Bird.
Well, Bird is the word.
Yeah, and I'm almost ready to forgive him for Tomorrowland.
Because his best movie was Iron Giant.
Absolutely.
I still love it. I just like the fact, wasn't it Vin Diesel who's the giant?
Yes.
Vin Diesel is best in animated characters when he's like the giant or Groot, and he says 3 words, but they're amazing.
Which I think is amazing about Groot, because, and I could be wrong, but I remember reading somewhere that he did all the dubs.
Yeah, he
did. For Groot as well.
He picked up on a bunch of different languages so he could say "I am Groot" in like every language.
But no, Iron Giant's, and I'm really glad that no one ever made a sequel to that. But then again, I guess Disney will buy. Who made that movie? Was that a DreamWorks film?
No, I believe that was Warner Brothers.
Oh man, I think you're right. But now I gotta go and check it out when I get off the phone when we wrap this up. Whoever made it, I'm glad no one made a sequel. Although I think it's funny, and people forget about this, but that was based on a children's book that was written by Ted Hughes, who was Sylvia Plath's husband.
I feel like there's a character named Hughes in the movie to play off that. I feel like that's a thing in the movie.
Probably. Well, and he was a terrible human being, but he wrote the Iron Giant, which I've never read the book. I never have read that book, but mostly just because I read so much stuff about Sylvia Plath, and I didn't want to read anything by Ted Hughes because he just sounded like the worst human being. But I I know the Iron Giant's going to be making an appearance in Ready Player One.
I'm the only person not looking forward to anything about that.
I'm not looking forward to it either. It just looks like a giant nostalgic circle jerk. And I'm not immune to nostalgia, but it looks literally like just a giant. And it's fine if the movie or the book or whatever is supposed to be a commentary unto itself, but about that unto itself. But I have a feeling that's going to get lost in the translation if it's in the book at all. And then it's just going to be 2 hours of, ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that character. Hey, I know that character.
Yeah, and Wreck-It Ralph 2 is supposed to come out this year, where Ralph is in the internet.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. I mean, you know, I'm going to give that the benefit of the doubt because I thought that was a nostalgia trip that was done pretty well.
I hope it's at least better than the Emoji Movie.
Oh well, I didn't see that. I have self-respect. No, it's funny. No, I'm joking, but I can't watch movies that are like overtly that bad anymore. I tried to watch. What did I try to watch? The movie where Kevin Spacey became a cat.
Oh crap! What was that?
I think it was called Nine Lives. But that was the last time I watched. That was the most recent time I watched a movie that was clearly not going to be something that I would like. And I barely made it through. So the Emoji Movie looked like more of the same, so I haven't seen it.
Wasn't the Emoji Movie nominated for like Best Animated Feature?
I don't think so.
No, Boss Baby was. That's what got people pissed off.
Yeah, well, Boss Baby would have been a great 5-minute short.
It's just they wanted all the Alec Baldwin they could get.
Pretty much, and and I like Alec Baldwin until he opens his mouth and shares an opinion, but because every time that guy opens his mouth, incredible bullshit comes out. And he should probably just be glad that that people are still willing to pay to see him do something, even if it's just host a game show.
There's a lot of Disney stuff going. Oh yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean. They're replacing the redhead scene and making her like, a pirate lord lady. And people are pissed about that.
Are they? No. I went and saw the last one just because I like Barbossa so much.
Oh, this is the ride.
The ride. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a scene where there's it's a wench auction, and then there's like this one woman who's like clearly like not for sale. She's some fancy lady, and everyone's like they're all like, "We wants the redhead," and it became like an iconic quote. But the kind of thing is like auctioning women. That's kind of it's a ride for children. I see why Disney's going back and changing that.
No, I do too.
They updated everything else. Like they added Johnny Depp, they added Barbossa, they added, Davy Jones. It's like I think the rest of the ride could use a bit of an update too.
Probably. I'd have to actually go to Disneyland someday. Which is actually on my to-do list. I don't have children, so I'm still up for going to Disneyland. And,
well, now it's great to go, especially going to Disney World, because now every park has alcohol.
This is true. We talked about that, too. And, which sounds good to me. Although, if it were me and I was going to go to Disney World, I'd probably want to take some harder drugs before I left the hotel room. I wouldn't want to drink so much. It just seems like a bad idea. I don't like drinking at amusement parks because it's 175 degrees, and the minute I drink it, it's sweated out of my system anyway.
I wouldn't do anything that's like, makes you hallucinate because there's so much going on that's just pictures everywhere. Like they even like project stuff on the castle, and that would just mess with you. Like you would not be okay. No one would be okay.
I don't know. I enjoy hallucinating every now and again. And Disney World seems like a good place to do that. That's the one takeaway that I always remember when I was a broody, gothy teenager, I of course read Marilyn Manson's autobiography, and I'm sure it's true. Like the story, there's a whole story in there about how he and his friends took, because he came out of South Florida, and he came out of the music scene in South Florida, and there's a story in there from the early '90s about how they all took acid and went to Disney World. And I always thought, that if I was going to have to go to Disneyland or Disney World or whatever the hell it's called these days,
There's two of them. One's
there's two. Yeah,
one's
yep.
Disney World.
I forever get them confused. I know there's one in Florida and then one in California, right?
The world is in Florida. The land is in California.
Okay. See, and I'll probably forget that the next time we do this. I do have to go though.
Yes, it is getting to be about that time, though. I think with all this talk, I think I could sum up the title of this one as Sex, Drugs, and Disney.
Well, yeah, no, that seems fair. I bring that to everything I do. Not intentionally. It's just that those are the things that are usually on my mind. So
it's like sex, drugs, Disney.
It's a good mix. I mean, as long as there's no kids around, have a good time. No, and I do get a little creeped out. Like the degree of sexualization of children's characters does creep me out a lot. But I don't know. There's something about Disney where it just seems too ridiculous to me. But I know that's a whole thing. There's a whole thing about YouTube now where they're cracking down on people who kind of use Disney tags or use tags for family-friendly stuff and then do the most grotesque things imaginable with it.
They finally cracked down on that, and that's why I prefer Breach.tv, where if you want to upload content for kids, you have to actually get screened for that before it gets put in the kids filter. So that's why Breach is our sponsor, and we prefer them.
I like Breach TV a lot, and I'm not just saying that because they're our sponsor. If it were up to me, they would be the way of the future, just because I'm sick to shit of YouTube. But
YouTube is currently our internet media creator-based overlords. Bow down before the almighty Google.
Yes, no, we love you, Google.
Google, please don't kill us. I mean, I'm okay, because I don't have a Google phone, at least. I have an Apple phone, and Apple hates Google, so I'm safe there. I
have an Android.
Oh, no. So apologize to it immediately.
No, we're a month into 2018, and my will to live is already gone. So you know what, Google, if you want to come and get me, come and get me. My immigration status is a bargaining chip. Is a political bargaining chip right now. And life is just horrible. So if Google wants to come take me out, they're welcome to.
Isn't it great to be an illegal Canadian?
I know. I'm registered with DACA. Through DACA.
You're a DACA Canadian?
Yep.
Oh no.
Yep, I'm in the system. I had to go through the whole background check. I had to pay the $495 paperwork filing fee. I paid that twice because I had to renew my DACA a year ago. And I'm not too stressed out about it. I'm married and I'm Canadian. I'm not the target, but...
But you're still DACA, and people be like, oh, you're DACA. Go back to your country. And you're like, oh, all right, I'll take my wife. There's health insurance up there.
I've been called a criminal several times over social media in the last couple months.
It's kind of funny.
Which is funny because I've done... Well, never mind. But nonetheless, I'm not a criminal. And on that note, I'm not a crook. Thank you, Richard Nixon. On that note, I will wrap up. Thank you so much for having me again. Can I do a cheap plug?
Hell yeah.
Okay. Couple of months from now, we haven't nailed down the date yet, but my third book, Love and Quarters, which will be my second poetry collection, is going to be coming out through Moran Press. That's Moran Press. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us pretty much everywhere. Google us. We've got a huge catalog of really amazing books, and they're going to be They put out my novel Bondage Night last year, and they're going to be putting out my next book in a couple of months. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Hell yeah, support his book. I'll put all the links in the diddly-doos so you can look it up and get at it. And this has been another episode of Reimagining the Magic, and this has been Katie and...
Professional Mouseketeer Gabriel Ricard.
Hell yeah, and we'll catch you in the next episode.